Thank you. Well, of course, I'm Shirley Gibson. I really got in this race by really in being encouraged by my residents in my city, because they finally realized I was terming out, and they wanted to, what are you going to do? Or, you can't just not do anything. And I had decided, well, I'm going to kind of write a book and do all that good stuff. And I started giving it some serious consideration about what would I do, or what could I do in the public arena, and what could I do to make a difference. And so I looked at the races. I looked at the school board race, and I looked at the county commission race. And I made my decision that if I was going to run, I would go and run in this county commission race with District 1. And then I finally made up my mind. And so I made the announcement the night that I did my last mayor's address that I had decided I was going to run for this seat. And I did that after much consideration, because I really looked at what had happened in the city of Miami Gardens, which is a major portion of District 1. I recall and think about the struggles that we had and how we had to struggle to make change there, because systemically things had never happened. And it occurred, the change happened on my leadership, and it was just, I want to say 8 years, 9 years is next month. We just went, there was nothing, and under my leadership we were able to accomplish so many great things, and they were things that are so notable, where we changed the culture of the community. We brought in, there were many corporations that came in and brought in thousands of jobs, with the Walmarts that came. We have a new Mercedes-Benz that moved into the city, a lot of other new businesses that moved into our industrial parks. We have one of the very large private insurance agencies that's there, UAIG. So it has changed the dynamics and created a lot of jobs in Miami Gardens. And it was because of we were perceived, and people knew us to be a government that actually provided good services, that we had good policies that we implemented, we had best practices, and that it was visible of what we did. We came in under my leadership, as I said, and we started to clean the city up. We started to have the city to be more competitive with other cities, so people had a greater sense of, this is where I live and I like it. We were challenged from the very beginning with the fact that we did not have the level of police services that we knew we needed, and we were contracted with Miami-Dade, and we were required to do that for 4 years by our incorporation process. The citizens wanted a police department. We said, okay, we can't really afford it. If you want it, we will have to raise your taxes. The citizens said yes. And so we went about the business of establishing one of the largest police departments that any city in this country has ever established. We got very senior, already trained officers came in. Our crime rate overall has dropped by 30%. It has made a tremendous amount of difference. You see our offices all over. It's a great police department, and people love working there, and it has made a difference. And when we look at quality of life, those are some of the things you do. Quality of life, changing just the everyday thing, strict code enforcement. That is one of the things we instituted. We have to have that if you're going to have residents and businesses know that this is the part you play, and not because it's punitive, but because you know that builds a greater sense of community. And we've done those things. We have best practices in what we do when it comes to the administration of that city. People call us and ask, how do you guys do these things? Our staff go out and talk to other municipalities and businesses about what we do and how we do it, and it really has served as a model. I've been instrumental in that, because I realized that if we are going to change the dynamics of that area, we had to look at change. It wasn't easy. I mean, it was very difficult at first. But when people had an opportunity to actually touch it and see it, they truly accepted it. And I believe one of the focal points that happened in the city of Miami Gardens, when we asked residents for their resources, there was never any fiscal mismanagement. We never had any integrity problems. We never had any undue influence by any special groups. They knew that it was the business of the residents and the businesses that we had to take care of. And I demonstrated that under my leadership. I don't see that as being something that has been consistent coming from Miami-Dade County Board of Commissioners and my commissioner, who is the commissioner elected from that district, and we are, as I said, a major part of that district.
Right.
And so I looked at it change. If you want it to happen, I feel that you need to engage in the process. I think there's so much more that should be done. I believe in term limits. I think we should have them. I believe in incorporation. That has been a major struggle. I mean, they've just now said, well, we'll look at it again. I don't prescribe to the business that everyone who wants to incorporate will cherry pick.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these issues that you've touched on. There's some of the questions. We'll start just with the current budget of the mayor. I know you're not on the commission, but you've seen the reports about it, I'm sure. What do you think about the current budget? Is it about right? Would you like to see some changes going into the future or in this particular budget?
Well, this budget probably is going to be set by the time I get there to be sworn in. But I look what I have seen at this point. The budget certainly is going to be doing some more cuts when it comes to, I think, unincorporated services for the unincorporated area because of the millage for unincorporated aid. I don't think that it's going to fare well. However, I still know there is not the heart to do anything about taxes at this juncture. I think that is going to further increase the disparity of services in the unincorporated area, because there's not going to be the focus to get that done. I believe that those areas deserve better service so that you don't have this disparity in communities in unincorporated aid where they don't have the basic services that they need. And that is going to be a problem.
Do you have an example in your particular district of an unincorporated area? What types of services are they clamoring for?
They're clamoring for this whole sense of community and the fact of how do we live in this community. So we have, and one of the key components, sometimes people dismiss it, is really good code enforcement. Because now you're beginning to tell people this is how we build this community and this is how we maintain it, and that doesn't happen. I mean, I've been on the interviews with my opponent, and she has said, the county doesn't have money for code enforcement. It doesn't matter if you don't do that. You can't build on chaos and confusion and dirt and filth. It doesn't happen, and you have to find a way to do that. There is not this level of response of police to unincorporated areas that's in that district as well. I talked to people who were over on the east side of us that was in the district, just have been changed out now with the new district boundaries, but they were not able to get services from the police department as they would desire to do. So those are areas, and they're not able to effectuate the kind of change. People can't, they've not had their streets resurfaced in years. There's nobody that comes out and pick up the trash on the public right of way. It's not happening. There's no one doing the repairs for the sidewalks and things like that. That is common area that residents don't repair. That's not happening.
Okay.
The sewer system is in terrible shape.
Yes.
It's going to take over $1 billion and many years to fix this. The money's just not there. How would you propose to raise the revenue to do this?
I looked at that, and you look at my questionnaire, I tried to be a little bit in depth about my answer. That system is broken, has been broken for a long time. What I think has to happen immediately is a real plan to look at what will be the initial repairs and replacements. I believe that they're going to have to go out for some bonds to do that. And I believe that if they actually use the $25 million, which they say they have, that they can put into that fund for water and sewer, and not give it to Miami, not to the county, take it and put it into that general fund. They can take that $25 million and bond money so that they can actually go and start to do those initial repairs that they need to do for that system. Now, I believe that that money has to be money that they are going to be able to get from people who actually use the system. Because remember, you have so many other, like for Miami Gardens, we have North Miami Beach as a utility facility, we have Dade County, and then we have Opelika. So you have mixtures of people who are using different services. And I think it has to be so that those people who are using those services are going to have to pay for them. I know that we have
So
not...
you see some increase in the fees. They're pretty low from what...
When I've looked at our water rates comparative to other parts of the state, they are quite low. They're very low. Because we've never systematically over the years looked at raising those rates so that we would now face with a crisis where we'll say, well, I can't help it. It's not my fault now. You know, I have a crisis and we have to do that. I think that has been a lack of leadership, and we're going to have to raise the water rates. But I think the plan should be, how do we raise it over a period of time to get it to where it needs to go? Because there's no way that I feel that they're going to raise it to the optimal level. But I believe that we could do a 5 to 7 year plan to get those rates where they need to be and continue to bond out those funds, but not to use any more money from water and sewer. Keep that money there, use it to bond out and do a series of bonds, because for the final repair of this system, it's going to be billions of dollars. But for the initial, we could bond it from those dollars, and then we would have a series of bonding that we could go out and do the long-term capital parts of the repair for that system. Because it's a life and health and safety issue with that system being in such disrepair.
Okay. Thank you. I see that you served on the hospital board as a trustee, Aventura.
Yes.
So you have some sense about some of the issues that hospital systems face. The county has Jackson Health System, and it's a premier hospital, but it also is broke, and because of a lot of people have a lot of reasons for why that happened. And I'm wondering, how do you see Jackson? Do you see potential for it to go as a 501(c), sort of a non-for-profit, not a 501, but a non-for-profit hospital system akin to what the Broward system has, Broward Memorial, or Tampa has one too, or is there some other kind of fix, or do you think now with this smaller board, that's an emergency board that's looking at it, that it's moving in the right direction?
I would tend to want to give the emergency board an opportunity to really begin to look at this system now to see if we really can come up with what we need to do. Unfortunately, I don't have enough really inside information about what has transpired within that part of Dade County and its budget that happens there to say that I know exactly where they are with their funds and where the funds have been allocated and where there is this problem where they have not been able to collect. I've just read that. I don't know how in depth that is. But I think we need to look at certainly what we have and see if that can work for moving to the next level if we have to. I mean, that system has gone through so many changes over the last 10 years. I mean, and has it really been enough time for any system to really work? And I think key to that for me is there real accountability, and there's certainly a partnerships. There's a partnership with the University of Miami. All of that plays into how viable that hospital is going to be. I certainly feel that for the side of services that it gives to people who is that they are the catch-all because people don't have insurance, they can't go other places, then I think that's a challenge of being able to grow that hospital for the side where people who are indigent have to come there. And then people who can pay, I think it has to be almost like a dual hospital in the sense that you want to attract people who can pay, and you have to deliver services to people who can't. And by sitting on the board at Aventura, I certainly am very intimately knowledgeable about what is happening with the federal government, with the requirements that they are going to require hospitals to do. And if they don't, they are not going to get their reimbursements. Right. Jackson has a lot of work to do to come up to that. Most of it is going to hit in 2014. Mm-hmm. If they are not ready, they are definitely going to be penalized.
Right, and they're already facing...
is looking at stop fighting about this in the way that we're fighting and get this hospital ready to meet the new federal guidelines, and they are going to be very, very strict.
The charter review, you talked about Incorporation earlier, and you've really been on the ground with Incorporation. Yes. The Charter Review Commission made it easier for cities to incorporate, but maintain stricter standards for annexation. Where do you stand on that?
I am very much a proponent of incorporation. I don't feel that Miami-Dade County has been a good steward of delivering municipal services. I just don't think that's something that they do well, and I think they need to get out of that business. Areas need to be able to incorporate so that they can provide municipal services, which I feel government closer to the people is better for those individuals, and that they can do this. But they need the assistance of the county to make that happen. The county is going to have to be willing to allow areas to also annex where they need to, where they don't have to form. If it's a city already, they need to annex, or so they don't always have to be, everything is incorporation. I hear the argument from the Board of County Commissioners who are sitting that, well, the reason we don't want to fully look at that is because no one is going to worry about who's going to be left, that we have this cherry picking. They have a right to be worried about it because they created it. When we incorporated, we were considered to be too poor to incorporate. We had no resources. The community had not been taken care of with providing services. You are going to have that, but that's where I think they need to step up and say that we will help to alleviate some of this by taking these areas so that you can infuse them and bring them up to a really livable standard. Because no community that's very viable is going to want to take on communities that are so in need of all kind of economic development, social services, and just a total lack of community. I'm not upset with them because they say they don't want to do it, because that brings with you usually failing schools. You have this start of not having basic services that people need. I mean, we have communities that don't even have a major grocery store. You know, they don't have any place where you can spend I call your hard dollars. So you have communities that are really suffering, and the county is going to have to be creative, I think, and help to make these communities whole. So if they are part of a community that is a bit more affluent, it is not such a struggle for them. Should
voters have an idea of how much it will cost to incorporate before they vote? Because the way that recommendation came out of the Charter Review Task Force, there's no fiscal note attached. In other words, people would be voting on this without knowing how much is there at least a set amount that right now the county spends in that area that we know that a new city would have.
Yeah. I think, it would be good to know that, but just from my experience 9 years ago, 10 years ago, it's almost impossible to pull your numbers out, true numbers from the county. And it's the way they actually collect the monies and how they then divide the monies up. With us, they said we had, no resources. They were giving us millions of dollars more than we were actually bringing, but that was not true. But we couldn't get those numbers to substantiate anything. So it's going to be hard to say, if you incorporate, this is going to be your millage. It is going to be difficult to say that, because you really don't know how dismal things are until you actually get it in your hand. And one of the things that the county does, from the previous, they make you keep county services, like police, we had to keep them 4 years. That was a tremendous amount of money that we had no control over. We had to, they kept, of course, solid waste, libraries, fire rescue. They keep a lot of services.
But should libraries be a regional, county-wide service, or should it be a city service?
I think it could be county-wide, as long as that's a focus that they are going to actually maintain them and give them the resources that they need. I think that there's still those services. I mean, for us, we don't have a problem with fire services. We get great fire services. We don't want to start a fire department. It's just too expensive. Nobody want to do that. There are many areas that cities would not want to do, but they are going to have to be willing to help to do that. And I think they need to say, as a part of looking at it fiscally, we don't know exactly what the millage may be, but we would be willing to, at some point, say how much we would want to, over a period of time, invest in these communities, because we had them for decades, and we never brought these cities up to standard. I never saw anyone sweeping in the streets in my area. I lived up to over 50 years until we became a city. We never had anyone who cleaned out our drains. They hadn't been cleaned out in 20 years. So when you start to actually deliver these services and you become the city, what you thought you were going to expend, it's going to be different. And you really won't know.
More. It's going to be more. But you're going to get better service.
You're going to get better service, and you're going to see it. So the whole mantra about it is, people say, I don't want to pay any taxes. I don't want to pay. So it's very hard to say I'm going to give you a higher level of service because you have to pay for it. It's hard because they have not had a good experience with someone saying, okay, give me your tax dollars, and then later I can come back and articulate to you that you did A, B, C, and D.
We only have time for like
Yes.
two more questions maybe, and I wanted to approach the issue of this race. You're running against an incumbent who's been there, I guess,
8 years.
8 years. And you are supported by Mr. Brayman,
Yes.
and we've asked all the candidates who
Yes.
have come in on this about the Norman Brayman factor.
Yes.
What attracted him to you? Why is he supporting you? Is the stadium really the guiding principle here because he was so upset with the county spending that money?
Well, I truly know that was very upsetting for him. It was something he has been adamant against from the very beginning, and was very vocal about it in all aspects. But the thing that attracted Mr. Brayman to me certainly has been my track record of my leadership. Totally. I feel that I've been viewed as a political leader who has exemplified good leadership, that I've made good decisions about what needs to happen and getting it done, and leading in the way that I think residents want and businesses want their leadership to perform. And I've been consistent with that. It is not that all of a sudden now I've decided I'm going to be this kind of political leader. I have been consistent with my track record of delivering and getting services and delivering and making changes in many difficult situations.
How does this play out in your district? Commissioner Jordan talks about her knowledge of the county, that she used to be an assistant county administrator, and that people aren't as thrilled about Mr. Brayman. They see him as injecting himself into the district. And you've seen some protests outside his business.
I have, and when I meet with the commissioner, we're on panels. That's the platform. It's not about Mr. Brayman. It is about the people that we serve and what has not happened. I will say to you, the commissioner does have about 40 years of county service, including her time as commissioner. With that kind of time and experience, many of the decisions that she has made, she should not have made them, because she should be intimately knowledgeable about the county.
What examples can you give of, like, when you say many of the decisions?
She's been voting for a lot of the special interests. She's been voting, she voted for the rock mining situation that happened, and people are very upset about that, about the rock mining. It's that, we're going to vote for it because they said that they don't have enough resources to provide for their customers. Mm-hmm. But there's not this whole thing of really looking at that to make sure that's what's true. We had a situation with the county where we were never able to get our CITT monies. That was from the half-cent sale tax. I was trying to get those funds for over 7 years. Commissioner said she was not voting to help us get those dollars. You are a county commissioner, you are assistant county manager, you are intimately knowledgeable, and you should know that the first thing was that they should have followed their policy. The policy, the ordinance said that every new city that came on after that passed, we were to negotiate with Miami-Dade County to get our fair share.
And the CITT, for those who don't know what the acronym is?
It's the half-cent tax for transit. And I could never get anyone to actually deal with that matter. She said to us, well, if you want your money from the county, you're going to have to sue them. You sue them. That's not what your county commissioner says to you. We're the third largest city in Dade County, and we have been paying that tax just like everyone else. Well, we ended up getting counsel, and we were getting ready to go to trial. So I said, well, let me see if I can resolve this one more time. So I go down, take our staff, take our team. We go to meet with the sitting mayor, Mayor Jimenez, and I talk to him and I tell him, listen, the ordinance say that you have to negotiate with us. So he turns to his attorney and says, is what the mayor's saying, is that true? He said, yes. He said, okay, and I don't talk to you anymore. Okay, Mayor, let's work this out. Listen, I'm a sitting commissioner. That's the mayor. it should have been really almost a no-brainer. We should not have had to spend taxpayers' dollars to go out and hire legal counsel for us to get to that point. That, to me, is a lack of understanding about what your job is as a commissioner when it comes to that kind of disbursement of resources that should just come to your district. What it said to me, that she has not made that transition from being a bureaucrat to being a real politician. Because if you are just a county employee, you may be assistant county manager, and you say that, yeah, I might be able to take that. But you're being a county commissioner, you can't take that position. You can't take that position with us. And you know, voting, when we talk about, I think housing is a major issue. Transportation is a major issue. Not being in the mind where you want to really focus on transportation, because it's a major issue for us in my area where people ride the transit. I mean, we have very high ridership. Anytime those routes are cut, they are cut in that northwest quarter. I mean, you just have to stand up for those kinds of things if you are the commissioner, because people up there ride transit to get to work. That's their livelihood, to get to work. And I just think that those are not the right kind of decisions that you make when you know, if you know your community and you've been in county government 40 years, and then you can't turn around, and when you vote for the stadium and you don't realize that we're going to pay billions of dollars back over 30 years, and then you say on a session with me that she said, well, they fooled her. You can't run on that 40 years and then tell me I didn't understand what they were doing. You don't ask for any financials. You just can't say that and say that I should continue to be your commissioner. That's just no way.
I think we're out of time, but I did want to ask one last question, Nancy, on the destination resort.
Oh, the destination resorts. If the legislature approves a local referendum, should Miami-Dade hold a referendum? Would you support casino gambling?
You know, I have really mixed emotions about it, although we have a casino in Miami Gardens, which is Calder. I do have mixed emotions about it, about what it brings. Does it really bring to those who really, and when we say jobs, I mean, we always talk about the fact that it does bring jobs. But does it really reach those individuals who may be your core unemployed? Most of the time it will not. Most of the time they cannot get a job. And a lot of times they just don't have the skill set to go into those jobs. So we'll find that people will come in from outside of the community or even outside of the state, and they'll get those jobs. And then everyone is upset because, oh, we said we were going to get these jobs and we don't have them. So I have mixed emotions about that, about what people spend.
Has that been the Calder experience?
Calder has actually hired a lot of people locally. They actually have, because you remember they're really a very
They've been there a
small.
long time.
They have a community focus, and they have they are really good corporate partners with us in the community. So they know the community. So they already had people working there. So it wasn't such a stretch for them. And when they came to our council and said, look, this is a woman that we are assigning to you everyone will go to her, and they will put in an application, we'll do everything we can to make sure we can get people hired, they followed through on that. But they were very honest and said, listen, if you have any problems in your background or whatever, you're not going to be able to work here. You know, sometimes we're just not fair about what we say to people, because you're not. If you have people who have some issues in that background, they're not going to be able to work in those kind of gaming industries.
Okay.
So I have mixed emotions, but I think Dade County people should have a referendum. They should be able to vote on that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Ladies, thank you.
Thank you.